Today we're going to take a look at the Honda CRF300L. We'll talk about where this dual sport motorcycle fits into Honda's current model lineup, and we'll go over some of its specs and features, as well as touch on some of what Honda changed for 2021. Plus, we'll start it up and show you what it sounds like and a lot more. But first, if you guys find any info in this video helpful, please take a second and hit the like button. Liking the video and commenting below really helps with growing this channel through YouTube's algorithm, and I really appreciate the help, guys. So first up, where does the 300L fit in Honda's current dual sport model lineup? You start off first with the CT125 at $38.99, and then you move up to the 300L that we're looking at today, which comes in at $52.49, and then its cousin, the 300 Rally, at $59.99. If you haven't checked it out yet, I've got a video where I do a deep dive on the Rally that I'll link in the top right corner and below as well. Then we move up to the CRF300RL, which is quite the jump in overall performance, and that's why we're almost doubling the price. It comes in at $99.99, and I've done a video on that bike as well that'll be linked in the same spots. Then, last but not least, we have the XR650L, and it comes in at $69.99. I want to take a quick second and say thank you to Southern Honda Power Sports for opening their doors to me and allowing me to come pick through their inventory for these videos. They are a massive Honda Power Sports dealer here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with tons of inventory from new Hondas to used Harleys and everything in between that they sell to people from all over the USA. So check out the link in the description below and head over to their website to see if they can save you some money on your next toy. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into a little more info on the 300L. First up, do you have any options with the platform? You do have one option, and that's deciding on whether or not you want ABS, anti-lock brakes. If you opt for the standard model, then your MSRP for 2021 is $52.49, and adding ABS would bump you up to $55.49. When it comes to colors, like all Honda CRF models, with only a handful of exceptions over the last couple decades, it only comes in red. Now let's jump into the chassis and suspension. The 300L has a steel semi-double cradle frame that Honda's engineers went to work on optimizing, and in that they were able to shave off 0.3 pounds. They reduced lateral rigidity by 25%, but improved overall maneuverability and rider feel. The down tube is now 30 millimeters narrower, the down tube gusset is smaller, and the main pipe is 20 millimeters shorter. Plus, the diameter of the cradle tubes are down 3.2 millimeters to 25.4 millimeters. These are just some of the changes to help increase the ground clearance 1.2 inches. The swing arm's lateral and torsional rigidity have been reduced by 23 and 17%, while the width near the pivot was reduced by 15 millimeters. Plus, its overall cross-section was revised to deliver a more uniform distribution of twist, resulting in better feel and ultimately more predictable handling. The swing arm's weight was also reduced by 0.08 pounds. And if you'd like to see how many grams and ounces were shaved off part by part, I'll throw a link below over to HondaProKevin.com where I dive deeper into that technical info, because if I included it all in this video, half of you would have already clicked off within seconds, and this video would be about 30 minutes long. Now when it comes to suspension, it's using a non-adjustable 43 millimeter inverted Showa fork up front. The suspension stroke has been extended, resulting in 10.2 inches of wheel travel, an increase of 0.4 inches. In the rear, you have Honda's ProLink system with a preload adjustable single shock that also delivers 10.2 inches of travel, and that's thanks to a 0.6 inch increase. The shock settings were also revised, and a new rear link and connecting rod were used to improve damping. And now we're going to jump over to the brakes. It has disc brakes with a 256 millimeter rotor up front, paired up with a 2-piston caliper, and a 220 millimeter in the rear with a single piston caliper. The new rear brake master cylinder now incorporates the reservoir similar to their CRF race bikes, and that allows the elimination of the hose that connected the remote reservoir with the previous design. And if you do opt for the optional 2-channel ABS system, it can be turned off in the rear so you can lock the rear tire up if need be. And those brakes are stopping a 21-inch wheel up front with a 80/100 tire and an 18-inch wheel in the rear with a 120/80 tire. And compared to last year's model, the black aluminum wheels have now been polished for a glossy finish. Plus, while we're on the topic of wheels, Honda also made the rear sprocket thinner in certain areas and with smaller bolts too, using M8 instead of M10, which helped knock off another 0.04 pounds. And then you have the rear axle being hollow now, which shaves off another 0.03 pounds. And next up, let's jump into the engine and drivetrain. Now, Honda started with the CRF300L's liquid-cooled 25-degree dual overhead cam 4-valve single-cylinder. They increased stroke by 8 millimeters while leaving the 76 millimeter bore unchanged. This resulted in a 36 cc increase in displacement, bringing it up to 286 cc's, and changing its name to CRF286 just doesn't sound right, so they rounded it up to 300. The engine uses an offset cylinder, reducing internal frictional losses, while the piston has a special surface material plus a molybdenum coating. The oil pump features an internal relief structure that prevents oil aeration. The crank journal has a half-split press-fit metal bearing, while the crank bearing uses a cast iron bush. And thanks to the engine's counterbalancer, it's a lot smoother than you would think when it comes to a single-cylinder engine. They also revised timing on the intake cam to increase output in the low to mid RPM range, which is what you want for a dual sport bike like this, and unlike in bikes like the CRF300R that share the same engine, but you want that power higher up in the RPM range. Those changes help bump the horsepower up to 26.9 at 8,500 RPM, up from 24.4, and it now makes 19.6 pound-feet of torque at 6,500 RPM. Its torque was 16.7 pound-feet, and it came at 6,750 RPM. That may not sound like a massive bump, but when you break it down to percentages and add in the weight loss too, it's a decent performance bump. Helping you put that power to the ground is a 6-speed transmission, and that also saw some updates this year with new, shorter gear ratios in 1st through 5th gear and a taller 6th gear to help those that are hopping on the highway with this bike. It's also packing an assist slipper clutch, and that reduces your clutch lever pull by 20% and helps manage rear wheel hop. And thankfully, even with all of these changes, it won't break the bank to maintain it, as you can see here from the maintenance schedule in the owner's manual. Now, let's jump around the bike and touch on a few different things. Storage. Do you have any on this bike? Not really. You have this little compartment here, but you have the factory toolkit, if you want to call it that, and the owner's manual stashed in there. Another change Honda threw at it for this year is the new gauge display. The characters are 6 millimeters larger now, and in addition to your speed, clock, and RPM readings, you now have new functions like the gear position indicator, fuel mileage, and consumption too. Plus, it's a whopping 0.01 pounds lighter now. Also, if you've sat on a CRF300L in the past and didn't care for its seating position, it might be time to try again, as Honda revised a few things there this year. The handlebar sweep was increased for a more natural elbow position and lighter steering feel. Plus, handlebar weights were also added to reduce vibration. The width of the seat's rear and middle area are unchanged, but the front area is a little slimmer now to help with input from your lower body. And the foot pegs were also moved back as well. Now, let's touch on a few numbers around the bike. The curb weight comes in at 309 pounds. Add 2 pounds if you want to add ABS. It also has a 2.1 gallon fuel tank, and the seat height comes in at 34.7 inches with 11.2 inches of ground clearance and a 57.2 inch wheelbase. And now we'll start the bike up, let you guys hear what it sounds like, and then we'll come back for a few more things. and that's the 2021 Honda CRF300L. Honda's most affordable dual sport bike and one of their best selling motorcycles out of all classes, and for good reason. Is it perfect? No. Could it stand to have some better suspension and more horsepower? Oh yeah, but that would also drive up the price, and that's not what Honda is trying to do on this bike. This bike is all about cheap fun for the masses, and personally, I think they nailed it. But with that being said, there's always room for improvement, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. What do you guys think about the new changes? And what else, aside from the dumb brake line that's ran right in your line of view to the gauges, would you like to see Honda change next? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section, and I'll be joining in on the conversation too. But that's a wrap for this one. Thanks again for all the support lately. I really appreciate it, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.